Hello, Louis.
Hello,
Uh,
Alex. What
how,
are we doing here?
well, I've brought you here today um, for something quite exciting, actually.
Ooh,
Um, but of course, we should probably introduce ourselves as we always do. I'm Alex from My Headspace,
I'm Louis, also from my headspace.
and this is just English talk. Except, as you will probably notice, we're in the digital world.
Oh, yes.
Uh,
Communicating through the ether.
yep. And I've brought you here today because I I would like to try something
Okay.
kind of wild.
Wild. All right.
Yes.
Lay it
Uh,
on me, brother.
so I'm gonna just make it appear so you should see it in three, in two, in one. There it is.
Ooh, tier list.
Yes.
Okay. And
I've got
those are
every.
all our GCSE literature text characters
Yep.
for Nine Spectacles,
Yeah.
A Christmas Carol,
Yeah.
Romeo and Juliet, and Macbeth.
Yep.
Oh, and Blood Brothers,
And Blood Brothers
and Jekyll and Hyde.
and Jekyll and Hyde.
Amazing. Okay, so literally all our texts then.
Yeah.
Um, it might sound like a stupid question, but what are we ranking them on?
Um, just vibes.
Vibes.
Yeah,
How much we would like to hang out with them.
yeah, just they're kind of like, are they a legendary character?
Yeah.
Are they sort of neither here nor there, like take it or leave it, sort of? How likely are you to adore them, and continue to speak about them long after you've left school?
True.
That
True.
kind of thing.
Okay. Well, if you're us, you'd continue to talk about them for decades after you've left school
Yeah, for
because
like
you've become a
forever,
teacher.
forever.
Um, okay, now because I'm a very very old man.
Yeah.
Um, I can see A B C D, and I'm familiar with my alphabet, so I can kind of rank things in order of that. But I've never seen S above A. What is the S tier? What does that mean?
Like supreme, like
Supreme.
superlative,
Excellent.
like
Okay.
special.
Okay. So
Um, like so, like that's a very what's the word? Selective category. We have to be careful. We can't just be going throwing randoms in there.
so no willy-nillying into that category.
Yeah, we have
We've got to
to.
really
Yeah, we got to
got to get on
agree.
point.
Yeah, yeah,
All right.
exactly. And I think my feeling is that there will be um some that we're just like, yeah, you know what, that's a S tier character. There may be others where I'm feeling kind of SE, you're feeling kind of A.
Are we gonna fight it out?
Yeah, and we'll sort of, I don't know, do some rock paper scissors or something, and
All right.
decide.
Amazing.
Cool. Should we dive in?
I think we should.
Yeah. As you can kind of see, there's there's no real order to how they've kind of landed. So
No,
I
I'm
guess
loving
we'll
it.
I guess we'll. How would you like to do it? Would you like to work across? So from like Scrooge to Linda, or would you like to go down, or should we just go random?
I think go random.
Okay, random.
I trust your judgment. Just lay it on me.
Okay, I will sort of pick and maybe we'll. Yeah, let's see how it goes. I think these are always best when you just kind of vibe on it. Um,
Yeah.
let's just go heavy straight in. We're going to start with Scrooge.
My man Scrooge. Okay. So if we're talking in terms of how much we like him,
Yeah,
um, I think he's a bit of an icon. I
yeah.
somewhat controversially, I massively prefer him when he is his curmudgeonly, miserly
Mm.
self,
Do you feel
and
it's a
he's
bit?
got a lot more about him.
I feel it's a bit put on his redemption.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's too extreme. It's too binary. Whenever you see the film versions, you go, "Ciao, mate."
yeah.
Um, I'm tempted to I'm tempted to put Scrooge in C tier, quite simply
Whoa.
for letting himself down
Oh,
by becoming such a good person. I feel like he it weakens him. You know, I feel
wow.
like if you're gonna be anyone, you need to commit to it.
Wow, I love it. I did not see that coming. See, I was under I kind of my instinct was telling me that he was going to be straight in on S.
Right.
Well, only because it's like, you know, Christmas Carol is incredibly influential. It's timeless. It's arguably the best thing that Dickens wrote in terms of like lasting legacy. Um, and you know, Scrooge is at the center. I just my instinct was telling me that just because of his cultural cachet,
Mm.
that was a straight in.
My
However,
man's a puppet.
yeah, and
I can't get behind puppets.
yeah, no, that's fair, and particularly the end is, l- I mean, firstly, it just feels quite rushed. You know, that final stave.
Yeah.
Um, And you know what it's like when you teach it, you go through the whole, and it's, oh cool, goes to Christmas past,
Mm.
present, future, yet to come, and then it's like, right, what happens at the end? He kind of comes around, and you know, I love Christmas, and I'm a happy guy now, and thank
Yeah.
God I'm
And
here,
that,
and
that final stave is about 10 lines long.
yeah.
It's
Um,
misery. I hate it, honestly. But
well,
I think, you
go
know
on.
what? The other thing that I would say um about Scrooge is that he at no point is particularly likable,
Mm,
even when he has become the good guy. It feels a bit sanctimonious. Now, if you want to see this done well, Frank Capra's "It's a Wonderful Life."
oh, great film.
Okay, well, we have George. What's his name? George something. George, our main character. Christmas
George.
Redemption done right
Yeah.
with George. I hope it's George now. Christmas Redemption done right. You see that done, you think, yeah, that story tracks, and that's a film version. It's black and white, but it's good. It's good. Highly recommend. I'm sticking to my
All
guns with
right, cool.
Scrooge.
I'm
C tier.
happy. I'm happy to stick Scrooge and C then. Great. Um,
All right.
okay, cool. Let's go down here.
Yeah, do it.
Let's keep in kind of in Scrooge world for a little bit. Christmas past. I mean, I'm gonna dive in here and say uh that's another C tier character.
Mm,
Uh,
yeah.
for a couple of reasons, mostly just that really annoying. I know this is not Dickens' fault, but the annoying depiction in the Jim Carrey version where he's like that, you know, you know that one.
I'm a reedy voiced candle.
Yeah, and like, what is going on there?
Mm,
Christmas past, like,
yeah. I mean, Dickens talks about this kind of light emanating from the top of his head, and then the director was like, so he's a torch then. Okay.
yeah, it's so jarring. Um, I just feel, although, and this could push me from C to a B. He does probably take us to the most like interesting parts of the book. So
Yeah, this
schools,
is what I
the
thought.
the childhood, um, Belle, you know, which is probably my
Yeah.
favorite bit of the book. So in terms of, you know, impact, he's up there, but we'll come on to the other ghosts at some point.
Yeah.
But if we're talking
I
about kind of vibesman, then
yeah. For me, I think he's B tier. Um
okay.
Purely because of the impact on Scrooge. Because I agree with you, like the past is not only the most stirring, but I mean, yeah, like you said, when we get to Ghost of Christmas Present, I can talk about why I think that he's a D tier waste man. Uh
Whoa. Okay. Well, let's because there's no kind of order to this. Let's just do the ghosts. Okay. So we've
yeah.
and tell me why you think present is D, because I'm actually going in the opposite direction on this for sure.
Yeah.
But go on, you start.
My issue with Christmas Present is Number one, it's on the nose with the pun and dressing him like Father Christmas.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And then all the places he takes Scrooge,
yeah.
they're essentially saying, "Hey, Scrooge, it's Christmas."
Hmm. I
That's
mean,
it.
but it is a
That's it.
Chris. It's a
The
Christmas Carol.
spirit of Christmas is that it is Christmas. He's not teaching Scrooge. Look at who he used to be. Light goes to the past. Yet to come is obviously we'll get to that one. But is actually doing something. This one is just going, hey, look, Scrooge. I'm not sure if you've noticed, mate, but it's Christmas. It's Christmas everywhere, but in your heart, nah, not for me, mate. Stick him in the D's.
Okay, okay. I'm going to
Right.
tell you. Well, I'm going to tell you. Okay, so he's jolly, right? He's jolly. He's fun. He's kind of benevolent in his aura. He's
Down with the kids.
um, he's jovial. He looks like a cool guy to go for a drink with. Like if you went for food at his house, it would be plentiful. Given his opening, um, and in the way that all great hosts have a certain surprise at the end of the stave, what should emerge from beneath his robe?
Yeah, but what are they doing under there? Ignorance and want, right?
Yeah,
What are they doing there?
well, I mean, they're not real, so they're just they're just an allegory. They're just a living, breathing metaphor. So yes, maybe it's a little bit weird, but he's got something about him.
So you can call me allegory. All right. Okay, so let's compromise then. He's another C tier, isn't he?
Yeah, fine,
Yeah.
fine.
All right. You
Um,
won me over.
I mean, D tier has to be reserved really for like superbly. Um, we'll get onto I think some of
Yeah.
our Ds, right? So
I
Christmas.
love how we're not defining our terms. We're just like, yeah,
No,
it
you
might
just
influence the book.
no, no, no.
You might want to go for a drink with them.
Exactly. Look,
Good vibes.
this will reveal itself over time, and there's only one way to do it, which is just kind of half on instinct and half on debate.
All right. Let's go.
Christmas yet to come.
Uh, see, for me, I'm thinking B tier. He doesn't have much of a speaking role, but is the is majorly influential. Like he scares Scrooge into submission, and
Yeah,
that may go some way to explaining why Scrooge's turnaround is so kind of abrupt at that stage. He's going, my man, you're going to die alone and
yeah,
friendless, and the people who are so more deserving than you are also going to die
yeah.
because of you. I feel like that's pretty
I
pretty
think
major.
he's an A tier character,
Interesting.
and just for those reasons, but also like he is freaky and scary.
Mm, yeah,
And also the places that they go are just like horrifying.
yeah,
And if you were taken to see your grave, if you were to taken to see people come into your come into your funeral for food, free food, or forgetting your name, or calling
yeah,
you calling you Lois, Lois, you know,
yeah. That would be
calling
gutting. That would
or
be gutting.
calling me Alan,
Alan.
hey Alan, that kind of thing. Alan.
I
Um,
feel like a lot of our references are going to be lost on our audience, but I
yeah,
don't care.
yeah. None of our
Um,
audience went to Reading Festival in 2010, I assume.
times,
Good times.
scenes.
So yeah, so for that reason,
Go on
he's
then.
an A.
A.
Yeah, I think he's our first
Sweet.
A character. I really enjoy Christmas Yet to Come.
Handshake on that one.
Okay. Let's have a wee little pivot, shall we? Um,
Give it.
and let's jump over to the other side, or the other book on that section of the paper, which is of course
Mm.
Jekyll and Hyde.
Oh yes. All right then.
Um, who have I got? Who's the first one? Ah, here we go. Hyde. Well, I feel like we should start with Jekyll because you can't really talk about Hyde and
Yeah.
not
One
begin
with
with
that. Yeah,
Jekyll.
yeah, for sure.
Okay, so Jekyll. Now you'll know from our teaching, Louis, that you teach Christmas Carol and I teach Jekyll and Hyde. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on the novel Jekyll and Hyde, Stevenson? Are you a fan?
I I love it. Yeah,
Mm,
it's a lot of fun. My only reservation with that book has ever been that because there is so much kind of cultural capital accrued the um the novel kind of living beyond the novel. Like we talk about Jekyll and Hyde. Everybody talks about the concept of someone who is a Jekyll and Hyde, a kind of
yeah, 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 yeah.
a two-part person, and kind of
Hmm.
changes in personality, and it's become cultural way beyond the novel. Like most people haven't read it,
No,
and so as a result, when you do read it and you come to the realization that it's not until the big reveal in that final kind of account of what happened that you go, oh, Jekyll and Hyde, same person. But everybody already knows it. And so
yeah,
for kind of modern audiences, it has been spoiled a little.
yeah,
But the premise, genius. I love
yeah,
it.
yeah. No, I agree,
That's
and I wonder if also the reason why Christmas Carol obviously is partly more influential might be to do that it's more adaptable to screen. You know, we have those kind of like
yes.
screen versions which exist kind of beyond the book. Jekyll and Hyde, as far as I'm aware, off the top of my head, nothing stands out to me. So I'm sure there have
There
been.
have been no good ones.
Yeah,
No
right.
good ones. It's the same with Frankenstein, which
Yeah,
obviously we don't teach at my headspace,
yeah,
but the film adaptations have all been diabolical.
yeah.
Looking forward to the Guillermo del Toro one though.
Right. Yeah. Well,
I was
he
actually in I was in Edinburgh when they were filming it, which is pretty cool.
thought you were about to
Um,
subtly drop that you were in it.
I wasn't in
Like
it.
that's how it.
I am actually I'm playing Victor Frankenstein.
Amazing.
Um,
Great. So I guess this will be our last podcast then,
yeah.
before
Peace
you
out, you guys.
hit the big
Before I
time.
hit the big time.
So
But
Jekyll, yeah, Jekyll. Okay, so G- genius,
genius,
genius.
the genius. Yeah, yeah. I agree. I mean, what I kind of love about it is that he wrestles with something that we most of us have most of us kind of conscientious people have wrestled with a little bit, which is this kind of disjunct between how we ought to be in society and um, what our brains and bodies want us to do a lot of the time.
Yep.
And he's gone, I find that really, really tricky. And instead of just trying to resolve his cognitive dissonance with going, well, I'm going to throw myself into my work, he goes, no, I'm going to cure it.
Yeah.
I'm going to cure it. I'm gonna get rid of all of these base elements and just be my purest self.
Yep.
Um, and yeah, he fails miserably, of
Yeah.
course. But I love that.
Yeah. I like the struggle. It's very human.
Yeah,
To take on something so um big, and ultimately fail.
yeah,
It's much, you know, to just jump back briefly to Christmas Carol. Possibly the reason why the ending is a bit ugh, is because he just seems to be cured. You know, like without any kind. Whereas the conclusion of Jekyll and Hyde is much more realistic.
mm, I
In that.
agree.
I mean, for me, I think. I mean, we can't really speak. We kind of need to speak about them together, don't we? Like
Mm.
in that respect. I mean, I would say that Jekyll and Hyde are S tier characters, and for the
As characters,
yeah, as characters go, and for the reason that you've mentioned already, which is that like that phrase is just exists beyond them.
yeah.
Um, I also think that the right,
Most people don't get it right. To be fair,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
they kind of miss the point. They think it's a good evil split, and it's not.
no. What do you think it
It's
is?
it's so much more complex than that. It's more like if it's more like the kind of the model of the psyche, the
Yeah.
kind of the superego and the id,
Hmm.
um, with Hyde being kind of base desires and Jekyll being this curated personality that can fit in with the constraints of society.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, it speaks to so much to the time, so that, you know, the Victorian
Mm.
era she
Yeah.
was written, and people not being able to express
Propriety.
themselves. It
Yeah.
also raises questions in today where, you know, we live in a far more individualist society, right? Where people are much further free to express themselves in however ways they wish. Um, and when that comes to the fore, you know, do you end up with the kind of tyrants that we, or tyrants, I mean, I don't want to get too political, but, you know, the kind of
Mm.
every man for himself sort of thing that seems to typify Western societies today, where people don't care that much about the many, and they seem to care mostly about themselves, because they don't, because there's not that same kind of like thing holding all of these internal what's the word, desires
Yeah.
at bay. You know,
Yeah.
the Jekylls have started to move away, and the Hydes are, you know, the Hydes are reigning supreme.
They're closing in. Yeah, I think it's a really interesting take, and I think that in our society that there's so much more interesting discussion that you can have about Jekyll and Hyde than you can have about A Christmas Carol, because quite frankly, the premise of A Christmas Carol is fairly dull. It's like do
Yes.
good, especially at Christmas.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah. See you later.
Job
Um,
done.
what
Yeah.
about some of our other? Let's think about. Well, let's talk about the kind of main narrator, as it were. This voice of reason, Utterson.
Mm,
You know, I'm going to come out and say that the other remaining, we've got Utterson, we've got Lanyon, we've got Enfield and Paul. Where Jekyll and Hyde are magnificent in their
yeah.
themselves.
Whereas every one of those characters is eminently forgettable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I've taught it countless times, and I'm still sitting here thinking, right, so okay, so Paul
How are
is,
we going to
yeah,
differentiate
yeah,
them?
Paul is the butler, Utterson is the narrator, and
Yeah.
Lanyon and Enfield are kind of pals who sort of
Yeah.
exist largely just to forward the story
Yeah,
of
exactly.
both.
Presence there when the transformation first happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do we? I mean, what do we say about Paul Lanyon? I mean, what do we? Okay, well, let's start with Utterson. So Utterson maybe a little bit more valuable of a character, because, you know, he kind of tells so much of the story. He's our conduit, as it were, isn't
Yeah.
it, through which everything is received. And I guess if you're thinking about this novel from the kind of, you know, exam perspective, everything is channeled through him in some respects, and so he, you know, can we trust Utterson? We're supposed to trust Utterson. Is everything true? Is everything kind of, you know, relatable and believable as it
Yeah, it
comes through
makes
him?
him somewhat more interesting, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Because uh, he has what's the word? He has a horse in the race.
yeah.
He's kind of curating things, and I think just as kind of like a just to make this at least vaguely educational.
What do you mean?
I
So
think he's
educational.
it's just I go to the pub with him.
Yeah,
Um, the in what we call the the epistolary format.
yep. As in
Um,
written through the form of letters.
yeah,
Yeah,
and just kind of a collection
yeah.
of documents to tell a story, and then the kind of the 19th century, particularly sort of Gothic writers loved doing this. And another kind of great example is like a lot of Frankenstein, like Frankenstein is told initially through letters, and then there's sort
Hmm.
of diary entries, and then there's like etc. etc. You've also got your like Dracula again is told purely
Hmm.
epistolary form. So the one kind of really sort of interesting thing about that is the main reason that they do it is to preserve a sense of like verisimilitude.
Yep.
This kind of sense that because these are all like discovered documents, it's the same concept of like found footage films, right?
Mm.
Where um, there's no way of knowing if these people who are currently talking survived it all, and this is real because it's discovered in these kind of these various documents in their like unedited format. What's interesting about that then is to go, okay, but who assembled
Yeah.
the documents.
Yeah.
Who curated, who edited, who
Yeah.
cut and spliced, and therefore anyone who kind of takes on the role as like the main narrative driver, you go, okay, what what's your game? What's your angle
Yeah.
here? Why have you collected these particular documents? Are you
Yeah.
trying to make a moral message?
Yeah.
So in that sense, um, he becomes our most interesting of those characters.
Where
There's
is
also a
he?
bit of normative. Uh, I mean, for me, it's still going to be C tier,
Yeah.
but but not D tier. Like realistically, the other ones are going to be for me. I'm just going to say it now.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I completely agree. Lanyon, sorry,
Undifferentiated
Paul,
others.
Enfield, you're just
Enfield, yeah,
you're just there, mate.
yeah, yeah.
Unfortunately
You're
for
there.
you guys. I mean, yeah,
You're a plot
yeah,
device.
they are plot devices, and that's probably where the novel kind of falls um falls short a little bit.
Yeah, Utterson,
Yep.
also a bit of great nominative determinism. Utters
Mm.
on. He's the one who
He is the one
utters
who's I am the one who
bullshit.
speaks.
I'm the one who knocks.
Exactly.
Another reference that's going to be lost on our audience. Um,
Precisely.
I was thinking pivot earlier would be another one.
Ah.
Pivot.
Although no, because Friends is
It's making a bit of a comeback,
it's
isn't
like
it?
massive. It's like massive
Mm,
with teenagers.
yeah, weird.
I don't know.
Anyway,
I think it's probably because it reminds us of a different time. You know, things when time a time when things were much simpler, kind of like the time in which Inspector Calls was written.
that was a masterful segue, my friend.
Now we've just done what, 3 episodes on Inspector Calls, so people could probably already kind of gather roughly um,
Yeah.
where
Should we
we.
zoom through these ones then?
I think we should, yes.
Yeah.
So we have Burling. Uh, big fan of Burling. Feel like he might be an A
My guy.
character. I think he might be an A.
I think so too. I'm
Yeah.
putting him in the A just quite simply because of his strength of convictions.
Yep.
I mean, who can be that wrong with that much style? Like
Precisely.
who else? Yeah.
Um, and let's go kind of through age, shall we? Mrs. Burling. I mean, see if it's on vibes, it's got to be D.
Yeah. Pure D tier. She's a
Um,
whole lot of nothing.
and a whole load of just aggravating
Yeah.
and
She's
kind of
she's both despicable and also forgettable, which is a
yeah,
really bad combination.
kind of low key evil.
Yeah. It's like there are so many like members of government over the last kind of like 15 years since I've been of voting age that I can think of who are exactly like this. I'm like, you are both despicable and eminently forgettable.
Yeah.
Um, and I feel like she falls into that same category.
And yeah, and yet kind of sadly powerful, which she
Yeah,
also is
yeah,
because of the way that she wheels and deals in young women's lives. So,
absolutely. D tier.
we called it. This is it. Definitive. If there was a lower tier, I'd pop her there, but
Yeah,
there's not.
put her in the
Um, who's next then? Oh, Inspector.
inspector.
Oh,
I mean, he's got to be an S tier,
yeah, obviously,
surely.
obviously.
There's no question about it.
Uh,
He's
it,
he is what do our young people call them? Sigma.
oh yeah, 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 yeah. He's a Sigma.
This kind of non-existent category of man.
Yeah, he's up there.
He's there. He's untouchable. Um, he doesn't play golf, which
No,
we should all remember. Always remember.
and
Um,
he is members of one body. We are responsible for each other.
yeah, what a guy. A message that holds true today as always.
Thank you, Mr. Inspector. You are not a ghost. You are possibly JB Priestley's mouthpiece, or some kind of spiritual deity sent from the
A
past to.
a ghoul, if you will.
Very good.
Nominative determinism. Bam. Number two.
We'll get into some of that when we get over to Mrs. Johnstone. Uh,
Yes.
who's next? Who's next oldest? Ah, Gerald.
Very.
Gerald. I think it's like he's a
You know how
solid.
I feel about him.
Yeah, I feel like he might be a kind of B. You think he might be a C? You think
Everyone
about.
hates him. Everyone hates him. He's
Yeah.
ran out of his time now because he's
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 not a
just
D
brilliant.
character. He's not on. He's not a Lanyard, Paul Enfield, nothing, or Mrs. Burling, just awful.
No, I feel like we spend a lot of our time like adjusting justifications for our characters in their positions. I think so. My issue with Gerald, and well, my students' issue with Gerald, which I you know I kind of vibe with quite often, is that although he doesn't do the most despicable things compared to some of the other characters, he is the biggest hypocrite and the most kind of just self-serving. Like, I
Mm,
get to have everything I want. I get to have all of the money and the prestige, all of the babes, and then get married
yeah,
and also get away from this scot-free and also hopefully just get my fiance back after my casual little affair, and still present myself as the white knight, fairy prince, if you will. Yeah,
he's a
see,
C.
because I wanna put him in the bin, but realistically, when you realize that there are people like Eric with his actions in the same play,
The less said about him, the better.
agreed. Just
Straight
put him
down
in the
into
bin.
D.
Yeah, D tier.
Um, Sheila.
Oh, for me, Sheila is an S tier character. I mean, realistically, she's probably an A, but for me,
Yeah,
she's an S tier just purely because she, again, you wanna talk about redemption arcs. Scrooge's for me is thoroughly unconvincing. Hers is brilliant.
yeah.
Like I fully buy it from start to finish. Um, yeah, I mean,
I just feel like
she's
where
not as
we're
iconic.
yeah, I just feel like where we're heading with some of the names that we can see remaining on the screen, that like to put her in S,
Yeah, I know
um,
you're right.
is it
I have.
like because also as well, although the inspector is an S tier character, but I think that his that level is achieved sort of outside of the literary canon, if you know what I mean. As
Yeah.
in, he's been put like I don't want to sort of spoil any of my future like takes, but you know, Jekyll and Hyde, that's a, a stone cold classic. Inspector
Mhm.
Calls is a great play.
Mm.
It's not a classic play.
No,
And
that's true.
it's got more clout in the canon um because it's on the spec, right? Because
Yeah,
it's studied by like almost every single year 11,
that's
not
true.
just in this country, but like anyone sitting English GCSE. So like it has more weight than it otherwise would have. And I think we got into this on the podcast where you know, was Priestley quite aware of just like how unpicked this play would become. Um,
Mm.
like probably not. So
Hopefully not.
yeah, well, definitely not.
He might have thought through the whole Gerald
I
apology
just
thing.
I just realized we we totally parred
We missed
off
out some
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 Christmas
some
Caroler.
yeah.
Um, okay,
Should we
have
make
we,
amends?
yeah, let's definitely do that. Let me just check if yeah, we've got all of our Inspector Calls characters. Okay, cool. So we got Fred. Mm,
He's a C tier.
yeah,
He's a good guy, but fairly forgettable.
yeah,
He's less forgettable than the ones in the D tier and less despicable than some of the ones in the D tier.
yeah,
He's a comfortable C for me.
yeah.
Tiny Tim, on the other hand, is for me an S tier.
Oh, mate, 100%, 100% agree with
Without
that.
a doubt. He's got to be.
Um, he is very sweet. Um, but, there is kind of little, maybe this is somewhat controversial. He is used a little bit as like, like, yeah, society has screwed me over, but I just keep trucking on. And because there's that whole take. I mean, it's not even a hot take. Like Dickens was not a socialist. He was very much a man who enjoyed making money. And often students kind of marry up like a Priestley with a Dickens. They would have disagreed on a hell of a lot, particularly in terms of like wealth and wealth creation. What Dickens wanted was not necessarily for like everyone to start giving all of their money away. He was more like let's make more money. And then let's give a bit of that more money away, if that makes sense, right? Like, as
Yeah.
in, it's like let's keep making money. And so and it's that sort of mentality that leads to these, or particularly in the Victorian era, these tiny Tims of the world,
Mm.
these kind of, but they had to just stick on a big smile and crack on. Um,
Yeah, there's a little bit of like again, I mean, it's a fairly kind of political take and quite a modern one, but this idea that when we like he is a character with a disability,
yeah,
um, and it's so easy when you are trying to separate yourself from uh, ableist ideas of kind of like there's they're so helpless and weak and pitiable and we should have sympathy, and trying to move over to look at these amazing people with disabilities and all the things that they do and they achieve
mm,
is better, but it's still a fairly harmful take to just
yeah,
go purely like we can only celebrate these people with disabilities if they have overcome adversity, if they are super inspiring,
yeah,
this kind of like hero worship that comes along with it, rather than let's value and respect these people because they are people,
yeah,
they're
and
humans, they
human, yeah,
deserve
yeah,
the
yeah.
same thing as everyone. And there's a little bit of that going on with Tiny Tim, that like he has to be this kind of um he has to be this kind of wonderful, inspiring, brilliant, feisty, spicy little guy, for this to work. All that said, God bless us, everyone, in his little voice,
God
and
bless
the
us,
fact that
everyone.
God bless us, everyone.
Yeah, nice.
As
Um,
as my students will know, I channel Tiny Tim several times a lesson when I like have to shrink my face because I put my head in front of the text and stuff. Um, I am Tiny Tim.
oh,
But
like when you kind of just make you make your, oh, nice,
through
okay,
OBS when I'm just shrinking myself.
nice,
Um,
nice.
I have to make my voice change as well because it's proportionate. Um,
Also,
but no,
just
Tiny Tim, that's sort of incredibly quotable line. His influence on Scrooge, the memorability of his character, and the fact he's literally got this alliterative, um, absurd little name of Tiny Tim. I'm sorry, he can't go anywhere else,
yeah, no, I
even
completely
with those
agree.
caveats we shared.
And of course, Tiny Tim provided Dickens with quite a large headache in the fact that he forgot to wrap his story up. Did you know that?
Go on.
Yeah, so the story go if you look in the final stave, um,
Mm.
when it sort of goes through in Scrooge's redemption, da 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 da, and then as it's heading towards, like, I think it's even in the last paragraph, and it says something along the lines of, and so they all continued their lives, and Tiny Tim, comma, who lived, comma, went about, because apparently his publisher sort of read the first draft and was like, Charles, buddy, what happens to Tiny Tim? And he was like, "What do you mean? What happens to Tiny Tim?" It's like, well, you leave it with this, like, and he will die, the boy will die kind of thing, but you didn't wrap it up. And he was like, "Oh my gosh, I did it." So he had to go in and add these, like, who lived, So, but yeah,
What? Very
yeah,
cool.
if you check it out, it's quite funny. Okay, cool. That's our final bits on Christmas Carol. Let's just pivot to forward in time. We're going to save the Shakespeare's for the last little bit. We're going to look at Blood Brothers, the modern play, set, of course, in Liverpool, dealing with class issues between the sort of 1950s and 1970s of Britain. Another example of a play that takes sort of modern, because obviously Willie Russell wrote this around the time of Thatcher, and sort of
Mhm.
applies it backwards to show how these things have not really changed. So it's another kind of
Yeah.
didactic, uh, polemic play that sort of wants you to think at the end of it that the class system is bad.
In conclusion,
They're
class equals bad.
so we have the twins, Mickey and Edward. Are you a Blood Brothers stan or Blood Brothers hater?
I love it.
Yeah, yeah,
I
me
love it.
too.
When I first taught it, um, I hadn't seen the play. I'd only read it. I read
Mm,
it so that I could teach it the first time.
yeah,
And I thought, well, this is delightful, but I didn't know the tunes to any of the
Mm.
songs, and so I just made them up on my own. And I think there was a sort of like minor scandal where I went school viral because one of my students had kind of Snapchatted me making up my own tune to one of the songs that I
Oh,
was
great.
singing in front of the class, and like went around the school, and it was a real winner. But
Was
I
it?
love it.
It wasn't. Was it? Tell me it's not true. But you were more like a kind of tell me it's not true.
I just
Say,
rapped it. Tell me
say,
it's
is
not
it
true.
not true?
It's
It's
just
just
a
a
story.
story. Boo, 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 boo.
Yeah, I made it. I actually made a grime version of
Oh,
like Marilyn Monroe.
coming soon. Coming soon on the my Headspace TikTok.
So
Um,
yeah, I love it.
me too.
Mm.
I
Mickey and
also,
Edward. Then should we start with the
yeah,
boys?
yeah, yeah, definitely. Mickey. Mickey. Okay, I mean, like, we kind of got to speak about them together, but just to separate
Mm.
them, Edward's annoying, um, and Mickey
Isn't it
is
how it is?
kind of also annoying, but he is,
Yeah,
from the streets, so we let him off.
we do kind of, and I in a way, I endorse that. Um, I mean, Russell was pretty clear that we are supposed to prefer him. We're supposed to
Yeah.
think of Edward's kind of um, ignorance about how the world really works to be like the worst thing about him.
Hmm.
Whereas the worst thing about Mickey is that he's just been really unfortunate, which has made him a little bit sour. Um, and so
Yeah.
there's more sympathy for him.
I would also say though, Mickey, like, yeah, we give him Willie Russell wants us to give him a pass
Mm,
because of like Edward's outcomes, right? So
yeah,
we're supposed to
yeah,
really
yeah,
see
yeah.
that. However, a lot of these it's a tragedy, it's a modern tragedy. You know that
Hmm.
tragedies pretty much by and large all have this inevitability and fate and free will, and to what extent are our actions, you know, sort of dictated for us. In this case, not by some like divine entity, but by the class system, which kind of
Yeah.
fills the role um, of a god, as it were.
Hmm.
But my feeling is still that Mickey. I mean, yeah, he's down on his luck, but it's that classic thing, isn't it? It's like loads of people are down on their luck. Not everybody who's down on their luck turns to crime, and
Mm.
there's a sort of oversimplification, um, and possibly a quite controversial one. I mean, it's a play. The play is, it's supposed to be entertaining, and it's a fairly simple story, and it's on the nose because Russell's trying to make a point. So I grant him that. But yeah, he makes the decision to commit a crime. He gets caught. Don't do the time. Sorry, don't do the crime if you can't do the time.
Correct.
Um, and yeah, and then he has this whole. I mean, I guess yeah. Again, he's angry because Edward and Linda sort of hook up, and that upsets him. But then then he takes a gun. But I always find that ending kind of because this country is not we're not a gun country.
No.
Um, and it's also the perfect sort of Chekhov's gun,
Yeah.
literally,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
we have these toy guns appear in the first bit when they're playing sort of cops and robbers, and then at the end the toy gun manifests itself into a real gun, and then there's a shootout, and it's like all a bit
Yeah.
Call of Duty. Anyway, I've gone off a tangent. My point is that I think that Mickey, sorry, just
I wasn't going to stop you. I was loving. I was vibing with it.
I just think that Mickey gets a bit too much of a pass, and for that reason, he's a B tier character for me.
Mm. Yeah, I'm not gonna fight with any of that. Honestly, I think he's. I mean, you could like anyone could have the argument. And I think obviously when we end up doing our podcast on Blood Brothers, there'll be
Hmm.
some interesting things to say about the crime angle
Yeah.
and the obviously you've got you got Sammy, the role of Sammy is a
Mm.
big kind of confounder there, quite simply because we can say, well, most people down on the luck don't turn to a life of crime. Most of them don't have the perfect opportunity of someone saying, I've got a ready-made crime for you to walk into consequence free, where you
Yeah,
can
yeah,
resolve all of your issues.
yeah. True.
But yeah, I agree. He's B tier. Like he's kind of brilliant. And I've seen some really great stage productions
Mm.
where they make you just absolutely love Mickey, and they make Edward so yeah,
So
slight.
what? So what are your thoughts then on Edward?
I think Edward's a C tier.
Yeah,
I think he belongs below Mickey, but not too far. I think
yeah.
it's quite, yeah, quite cut and dry.
Sammy
Sammy.
is probably just a D tier.
Oh, S tier for me. No, no,
Is he?
I
Oh.
agree. No, no, I do find him like mildly iconic in certain scenes, but he's objectively.
Maybe he's well. I mean, what's
Wait,
halfway between
that
B
was a
and
jump.
between S and D? Is it B?
No, no, I think it's fair to put him in D tier just because of his like compared with Mickey, who's kind of um decline from morally pretty um decent and like blank slatey.
Yeah,
You get to kind of sympathize with him. You don't get any of that with Sammy. You only get to see him in his corrupt form where he takes pleasure in others' pain, etc., etc. So
true.
we'll stick him in the bin.
Um, Mrs. Johnston for me, I'm feeling A.
Yeah, I think
I
she's
think
an
she's quite.
absolute
Yeah,
icon.
she is a massive icon.
Her songs are brilliant.
Yeah,
She's desperate to do the right thing
yeah,
against all odds, um, and you know is realistically a good mum
yeah.
in all
In
kind
in
of all the
in
ways that
in
matter.
yeah, in the circumstances.
Yeah, and right until the very end, she remains a good mum even when she's not playing the role of mum anymore because the kids are grown up. Like, yeah, I think she's 80. I think she's fab. She's my favorite character in the play.
100%. Mrs. Lyons?
Hmm.
Mm,
She's not my favorite character in the play, but she's also not. She's not awful.
I think she's
Yeah, I
B.
think BT.
That's
Yeah,
my feeling.
comfortably. Again, we treat a lot of these characters in pairs,
Yeah,
quite simply because they are foils of one another.
yeah,
That we're meant to be comparing them all the time, and so we often put them in these kind of adjacent or opposite categories, like S tier and D tier, or literally just next to each other for that reason.
and an interesting
But
way of thinking about them as well in terms of like sort of in how we engage with them as characters on
yeah,
on the screen because yeah, what we're doing here is a little bit sort of tongue in cheek, ranking these and that kind of thing. But um, writing about your feelings reading these texts,
yeah,
the emotions they inspire, your engagement with these characters is an important part of literature. And as well, like if we're thinking about how the writers do this, quite often they make us love certain characters by providing these foils so that like you have to sort of, unless you're very, very odd, necessarily. Well, maybe not odd, but unless you're sort of very, very different, um, you're pushed towards the Sheilas and Mrs. Johnstons and Tiny Tims and that kind of thing, right?
yeah, yeah, exactly.
So that leaves us with
Yeah,
little
these are all
old
very moralizing plays, texts rather, aren't they?
big time.
Um, and I'm not sure we can say the same about Shakespeare.
Although we just need to put Linda in a
Oh, Linda.
category.
Sorry, Linda. My bad, Linda. Um, she's fine. Again, she's there
She's fine.
purely to be the
The love
the
interest.
love triangle. Yeah, the that point on the love triangle, and he Willie Russell doesn't bother with much characterization
No,
for her.
no.
She's kind of pure. Also, I mean, I guess there's a very small comment, two very small comments on gender. Um, the fact that Willie Russell doesn't do much characterization for her is potentially the fact that he's focusing more on the boys in the story, but then that's kind of the point of the story, so it's much
Yeah,
more permissible. And he does have some awesome female characters, such as Mrs. Johnston, of course.
yep.
Um, uh, but also she's much less morally corruptible
Hmm.
than Vicky is, despite coming from the same kind of background.
Also, you just can't have every character unless you're going to turn Blood Brothers into like a 20
An
episode,
epic.
yeah, like series. Like if you need it to be a 2 hour play, um,
Yeah,
you can't
you need your
give,
focuses.
yeah, you can't give every character depth
No,
in the
it needs
same
to
way.
do so. Yeah, it's completely permissible.
Cool. Should we slide through the Shakespeare's?
I think we should. Let's see how.
Um,
Let's see if we can be zippy.
yeah, let's do a couple of like small characters, just bash.
Mm.
Right. I mean, there's not many small characters here, but we'll try. Okay, so the nurse.
For me,
Yeah.
I love the nurse. I think she's an S tier.
Okay. Right. Fine.
I I
She is iconic.
I love the nurse so much. I've decided to give her a name. I've always called her Betsy.
Okay. I mean, I've always, if I had to give her a name, it would just be Miriam after Miriam Margolyes in the Baz Luhrmann, because
Yeah,
that never has a performer and a character been so perfectly made for one another.
yeah, she absolutely
But
does.
Betsy works well too.
Uh,
Fry,
Neither of them are particularly Italian names,
no,
but who cares? But no, she's great. She's incredibly loyal. Even the point where Juliet feels betrayed by her, she's still thinking in Juliet's best interest.
definitely.
She has no kind of like desires of her own that she puts above those of Juliet. She
No,
lives for Juliet. She dotes on her, and she's also hilarious,
yeah,
which is why she belongs in S tier more than A tier, because she's not just good;
yeah,
she's
she's great.
like full of jokes and banter and smut.
Which, as English teachers, we always find fun to teach.
We live for it.
Friar Lawrence.
Friar Lawrence, I mean, he really dropped the ball, didn't he? We're not going to blame Friar John. It's Friar Lawrence.
Yeah, I mean, if
He
you want
absolutely
something,
dropped it.
yeah, if you want, it's like, come on, man. If you like, if you want something done right, do it yourself. But more importantly, than like, if it's that important, which it is, don't just palm it off on Friar John.
Yeah, or even a letter. Like, is he really such an important person that he couldn't have just taken a horse to Mantua himself and told Romeo the plan? There's
He
no.
obviously obviously had other things to do. For that
Yeah,
reason, I'm afraid he's C.
yeah, he is.
Just for
Yeah,
fun,
there's no other place for him.
just for a mad fumble,
Yeah.
frankly. Um, Juliet.
Um,
Oh, see now the instinct obviously is like particularly with these protagonists. And I mean, it's Romeo and Juliet. Like, come on,
the autonomy matters.
Yeah, what could we say that hasn't already been said? But um, neither Romeo nor Juliet, in my opinion, are S tier Shakespeare characters.
No, not at all.
Um,
I mean, it doesn't help that they're children,
yeah, yeah.
and
Which
so they act like children.
precisely. I would say I prefer Juliet to Romeo
Oh, miles more. Yeah, without a doubt.
because for a couple of reasons. One, you know, there's something more interesting going on with her character in the way that she pushes back against her family, and you know, she takes some agency over her life and her love choices. Um, she, you know, I mean, obviously, Romeo is an impulsive and rash young man,
Yes.
and behaves that way, and he, I mean, if there had been a successful uh, relationship longer than what 3 days between them, he may well have, you know, gained some maturity from spending some time with Juliet. Not that it's girls'
Yeah.
jobs to, you know, sort of maturize boys, as it were. But
But it is.
yeah, but she would have been a good
Yeah.
influence, you know,
Yeah.
on him.
And there's such an interesting kind of like, again, modern political angle on this. And I think a lot of students enjoy kind of um, engaging with that particular bit, just going, she is clearly the more mature one. You know, Shakespeare has this thing which has kind of been um, teased about for a long time about girls maturing faster than boys. You know,
Mm,
Juliet's younger than Romeo. But there is also this big comment on women, um, yeah, being the socializing, maturing. It's younger than Romeo. But there is also this big comment on women, um, yeah, being the socializing, maturing influences on men, becoming these kind of surrogate mothers,
hmm
until they can be mature themselves, and it's a labor that is imposed upon a lot of heterosexual women in those relationships, and so
Yeah.
it's an interesting comment, therefore,
Mm,
by Shakespeare,
yeah.
which for me pushes Romeo down. So I
Oh,
think Romeo is awful
wow.
for
C
me. Yeah, yeah, C tier, honestly.
or even
I just
D.
But I mean, if you look at the other ones in there, it's it feels a bit wrong, doesn't it?
That's a bit cold,
But
yeah.
I can't stand Romeo. I think he's a real irritation.
Sorry, I was just trying to see what happens if I put any more
What
characters
does
in the.
happen?
It just extends. It's fine.
Fine, fine, cool.
Um,
Uh,
we're obviously expert tier list makers. Like, what happens if I put the extra square in?
let's experiment.
Yeah.
Um, okay, should we do Mercutio next?
Yes. Yes.
Uh,
I mean, come on.
I've also noticed, by the way,
Yeah, go on.
that Benvolio is potentially missing.
Yeah, I could only I
Half.
chose 6 characters.
6 characters from each, of course.
Yeah.
That's fair. Okay, Mercutio. Again, I love Mercutio, and I think that I'm potentially influenced by the Baz Luhrmann version.
Okay.
Um,
I mean, yeah.
just
I mean,
the
for me, he's S.
yeah, but the that performance by the actor, whose name I don't even know because I haven't seen him in anything else. I need to
He
find out.
was in. He was also in Lost. He was Michael in Lost.
Was it? I've never actually watched Lost up past the
Right.
first
Yeah.
episode.
Who else was he? Yeah. Oh, his name. Oh,
Uh,
what's his name?
Harold Perrineau.
Yes.
I'm looking at other things he's been in. 28 Weeks Later, apparently. Haven't seen that one
hmm
either. Um, anyway, his performance as Mercutio is absolutely stunning. One of the best
hmm
performances in a Shakespeare that I have seen. Um, yeah, what
So
a
for that
choice.
for that reason, he's an S tier character
Yeah,
easily. I completely agree with you.
yeah. You put him in A tier there, though.
Oh, oh
It's
no,
gone
my
down a little
oh
bit.
my what happened to my tears? Oh, there we go. Oh, there they are. Right.
Okay, got to scroll
Nice.
up.
My bad.
Mercutio is S tier.
Yeah.
He's hilarious. Um, he moves the plot along. He has these amazing kind of monologue, soliloquy-esque monologues.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just S tier. Like
And he also utters the iconic "A plague on both your houses."
yeah, can't get around that. But he's
Legend.
yeah, whilst he's loyal to his friend, he's more loyal to his
Yeah.
self-preservation,
Yeah.
where he's thinking, "I've died because of you. I'm
Yeah.
dying right this
Yeah. Yeah.
moment.
Yeah.
I am dead.
I'm dying.
Yeah, come see me tomorrow. You shall find me a grey
Grave.
man."
Didums.
Um, what a guy. He's just brilliant. Yeah. So no discussion needed there.
Lord.
I
What about Lord Capulet?
um I mean, obviously he's a bit of a scalawag.
Yeah.
Um,
I think he's a B character.
yeah, yeah, like
But and
he has enough of a role.
yeah, and I think the only thing that well, there's a couple of reasons he's not a C. For me, he's not a C because he has quite a lot of impact, on the play. What might pull him towards C and B less is that obviously he's another one, kind of like Scrooge, whose pivot in a new direction is sort of not very believable. Like in the respect, he's like, oh, Juliet's really sad because Tybalt's died. Okay, well, what we'll do is we'll marry her. Let's marry her tomorrow, whatever it is, or in like 2 days, and then basically just is really abusive and like
Yeah,
and physical with her, which has come off the back of him at the start being like, no, she's not ready. He has this right real like in quite intense
yeah,
flip. But um again, I think that he Juliet sort of continuing with her push towards Romeo in the
yeah,
face of such an obviously larger than life father, once again just shows her kind of incredible commitment and and
yeah.
and and and, and beauty in that respect. So I'm a fan
Legend.
of Lord Capulet.
Yeah,
Right,
absolutely fair.
we've got just a few left. We're into the last place, so
We are.
and it's a big one.
We're
It's
just under
Macbeth.
an hour.
Yeah,
Macbeth. Yeah. Should we start with our eponymous Scottish king?
I mean, where else does he go, Louis? He's obviously an S tier character,
He is. He
and
is.
and so is his wife.
Yeah. They're just brilliant.
Uh,
They're some of Shakespeare's best
yeah,
characters. And they have some of their best had some of his best lines.
yeah,
Um I think we've talked, haven't we, about how much we both love the tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow
yeah,
soliloquy from Macbeth. We love Lady Macbeth's kind of brains and guile.
yeah,
Um, we we feel for her demise. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, they're both S tier. Like,
yeah. I
enough
mean,
said.
yeah, they're just perfectly written. Um, okay, maybe Lady Macbeth sort of towards the end it does drop a little bit, but as we've
Yeah.
discussed, we'll give Shakespeare a pass on that for now. Um,
For reasons.
Macbeth's, his ambition, his humanity, his fallibility,
Mm,
it just never gets old. It will be perfect. Uh, It will be as perfect in 150 years as it was
yeah.
sort of 400 years ago. So there's really no other place for them. And they love each other very much, and they have to. I couldn't separate them. I couldn't possibly separate them on this list because it would
After
seem
they were separated so tragically in the play.
exactly.
Yeah.
The Witches.
The witches are weird sisters. They're playing the role of the fates, really,
Hmm.
aren't they? There are a lot of discussions to be had about kind of like predestination and like related Calvinist ideas, blah blah blah. But I think at the end of the day, um, they are just the fates. They don't really have that much. They've got their iconic lines, obviously, which brings them out of the C tier, but I wouldn't put them higher than a B.
No,
Happy with B?
very happy.
Dreamy.
Macduff.
Macduff. Macduff is kind of like, he doesn't have all that much personality. He's just a little bit of a good guy foil for Macbeth.
he-
Um,
He's for me. He's. I mean, my instinct is C. He's just.
yeah,
It's kind of just there, isn't he? Really.
yeah,
And
yeah,
then we're left with Banquo and Duncan. Maybe we should have done Macbeth last. Because
yeah,
I
maybe.
feel like we've got like Macbeth, and Duncan, and we'll finish with Duncan and Banquo. Um, I mean, Duncan is a weak and ineffectual, useless king who
He is.
had it coming. All things considered, he serves only the purpose to continue the story. I'm putting him in C.
Yeah, fair.
And Banquo, I mean, Banquo, I guess. I mean, do we want to annoy King James? Um,
Put him in D tier.
yeah, like, hey, yeah, see you later. There you go. King James is rolling in his grave. Final hot take. Banquo is a D tier character. The less said about him, the better. Who comes back and haunts a person when he's trying to eat dinner? That's just weak.
That is very weak dealing, as Betsy would say. Um,
Cool.
so
Gone.
do we really do we really think Banquo is a D tier? I think the reason that, like, I feel bad for Banquo because he only gets to appear in like 4 scenes in the play.
Yeah.
Um, like the kind of the first few scenes before he dies, and then we get to see his ghost twice.
Yeah.
Um, that kind of like brief reappearance of his ghost with the witch's kind of second prophecy with Hecate and stuff.
Yeah.
It's just I feel bad for the guy, and that's why I want to put him in C tier, just as like,
Okay.
a little nod to the fact that he was taken too soon.
Yeah. No, you're right. He was. He
Thoughts and
was.
prayers.
And yeah, he has value. He has value, I guess. But I did just kind of want to, wind up King James, but I guess I will save that for
I'm
another
sure
time.
he'll be really bothered.
Yeah.
He's going to come back for you as probably as a ghost.
When I'm eating dinner this
When
evening.
you're eating dinner, he's going to be sitting in your chair, shaking his gory locks at you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, my wife will have to apologize to my daughter and say, "Oh, he's tired," whatever it is.
It's an infirmity. It's
Yeah, yeah,
nothing
yeah.
to those who know him.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You might think your daughter would know you, but you'd be
Well,
wrong.
no. Are you happy? Are you happy with that?
I think this is pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Looking at the rundown again, I'm thinking it's pretty strong. Yeah, I'm
Awesome.
happy with that.
Cool.
I will die on these hills.
I look forward to hearing people's comments and whether or not they
Yeah,
agree with. There's a few hot takes in there.
yeah.
There's a few hot takes in.
As I always say with any hot takes, fight me in the
Mm,
comments
yeah. Come.
or IRL if you can find me.
Yeah, yeah. You won't find him. He's elusive.
I am. I am. I live in a box.
Great. Thanks, Louis,
Thank you, Alex.
and
It's been a treat.
speak to you soon.